Hello everybody, I'm Natasha Farrant. I'm the author of Voyage of the Sparrowhawk, and I'm here today to tell you how completely delighted I am to have been shortlisted for the Spark Book Award. I'm especially delighted because I live just down the road from you all. I live in Shepherd's Bush, so not just round the corner, but very, very close, and just down the river from you. And the reason I mention the river is because I thought that since this is a book award, that I could read to you a little bit today. And I wanted to read you a bit that happens on the River Thames. So just to give you a little bit of context on this. So in this book, Voyage of the Sparrowhawk, my two heroes, Lottie and Ben, take a narrowboat from somewhere in England, just sort of north of London, through London, along the Thames and across the sea to France. That's the big adventure that they go on. So I'm just going to read you the bit where Lottie and Ben leave the canals and join the Thames. Now bear in mind that canals are very flat and there's almost no current at all. So, and they're made for barges, they're made for narrowboats, aren't they? Whereas the Thames, as you all know, is tidal, and anybody who has spent any time walking by the Thames or on a bridge looking down at the Thames knows how incredibly strong the currents are. So actually, it's a completely different experience being on a boat on the Thames to being on the canals. So this is the moment when Ben and Lottie join the Thames in their boat, the Sparrowhawk. And you just need to know a couple of things. One is that they're with a man called Frank who's helping them, and the other that they have two dogs, Elsie and Federico. For as long as they lived, Lottie and Ben never forgot that ride through London. The current leapt, tugging the Sparrowhawk sideways. The engine roared. Ben, who had chosen to stay below with the dogs because he couldn't bear to leave Elsie, sat on the floor with one arm round her and the other round Federico, holding his breath as he felt the hull beneath him shake. The dogs whimpered and pressed into him. Lottie, standing beside Frank at the tiller, gasped at the water's pull, tried not to think of the smashed barrel and the gulls she had seen swept away yesterday on the tide. But then, before any of them had time to be properly afraid, the Sparrowhawk reached the far side, Frank straightened up, and they were off, no longer fighting the current, but carried by it, flying into the sunrise. Lottie peered into the cabin and begged Ben to come and see. "Look how beautiful," she said as he came up the steps. "The sky, Ben! It's so much bigger than on the canals." Out along the tree-lined river they swept, past the botanical gardens and under the bridge at Kew, sweeping round past Barnes and under the railway bridge to the suspension bridge at Hammersmith, under the stone pillars of Putney Bridge with its medieval churches standing guard at either end, under more railway bridges at Fulham and Battersea. After racing past the embankment at Chelsea, at last it felt like they were entering the proper city. They raced under Lambeth Bridge, and Lottie squealed as the Palace of Westminster came into view. "We're going past the Houses of Parliament!" Lottie knocked into Frank as she jumped up and down, and the Sparrowhawk briefly rocked as she veered off course. "Sit down, Charlie, for heaven's sake," Frank shouted. "Big Ben!" Lottie screeched. Frank's mouth twitched in an almost smile. On and on they swept as the sun rose higher in the sky and the light bounced off the water. Westminster, Blackfriars, Southwark. Lottie was counting off the bridges, using them to measure the distance they had come. "St. Paul's," she squealed. And then, in an awed whisper, "The Tower of London." Wider and wider the Thames swelled until it was possible to imagine how it might turn into the sea. The city gave way to warehouses and docks, where giant cargo ships were anchored. Ben gulped at the sight of them. "Anything," Lottie reminded him. "We can do anything." At Limehouse, Frank turned a sharp right off the Thames and into the basin, and they all breathed out at the same time as the current stopped and everything slowed down again. "That," declared Lottie, as the dogs scrabbled to be let out, "is the best thing I have done in my entire life." So I hope you enjoyed that little section of Voyage of the Sparrowhawk. I hope it'll make you want to read more. And I really, really hope that we can meet in person soon, one day. Meantime, stay well, keep reading, and thank you again. Bye.